Welcome to the Ladybug Laboratory podcast. I'm your host, Lily. This is a vlogcast all about knitting, sewing, crochet, various crafty exploits that I find myself getting up to. If you're a returning viewer, it has been about 3.5 months since I last recorded, and you may or may not be able to figure out why that is. I'll talk about that momentarily. But I just want to say that I am entering a new stage of my life, and so I plan to be recording once or twice a month for the foreseeable future, probably up until about the new year, although December, we'll see. But this is going to be a little bit of a longer episode because it's been so long, and yeah, so what I've got going on today. I am drinking water. Today is September 3rd, which is a Tuesday. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about our Tiny Makes Cal Create Along, C-A-L. And after I talk about the Cal, I'm going to talk about my plans for the upcoming year. What I did forget to mention in that segment, which I'll mention now, is the part about how I'm going to be recording more frequently. Yeah, and then after that, I'm going to show you all my yarny finished objects, followed by my yarny works in progress. Then I'll show you some cross stitch and some sewing, and then today's topic is about breaking taboos. I talk about mental illness, I talk about pregnancy and expectations around parenting, and I talk about how in society we tend to define ourselves by one thing, and I sort of end with a challenge for you guys. Because there is a lot in this episode and you may or may not want to jump around, I'm going to try and have timestamps in the down bar so that you can click on them and go to whichever segments you want. So that if you want to skip, for instance, the sewing and go to the discussion at the end, you can do that. Yeah, that is about all that I have to say for you today. I'm really excited to be back to recording. I'm enjoying this, I'm having fun, and I'm glad that I'm doing this. I'll talk about a little bit about why I'm excited in the section at the end in the topic, but I feel like my life is getting back to normal, and that's really exciting. So without further ado, let's get started. Oh, and I forgot to mention, you can find me on Instagram as ladybug.lily, and you can find me on Ravelry as ladybuglily. There is a Ravelry podcast group that is a Ladybug Laboratory podcast group on Ravelry. So yeah. Hi everybody, this is Gwen. She's 2 months old yesterday. She's wearing a hand knit outfit, and this was knit by Chase, who's a friend of mine, and she owns the Black Squirrel. And yeah, she's a cutie pie. She was born July 2nd, and yeah, it was her due date. She was born on her due date, which is very exciting. So yeah, she's a cutie pie. She's a sweetheart. I'm not going to talk about her at length because you're not here for babies, you're here for knitting, but just wanted to show her to you. And she's going to stick around for a little bit while I talk about our Tiny Makes Cal. So the Tiny Makes Cal is the Tiny Makes Create Along, so you can knit, crochet, weave, spin, quilt, sew, whatever. And the idea is that you are making tiny things or things for tiny people or animals. So for instance, if you wanted to make like a mochi mochi, like a tiny stuffed animal, that would count. If you wanted to make a regular sized stuffed animal, because it's for a tiny human, that would count. If you wanted to make a baby or kid sweater, that counts. Dog sweater counts. Baby blanket counts, right? So anything for a tiny human or tiny mammal or anything that is tiny. I have been very lax on monitoring this create along because I have been pregnant and then had a newborn baby. So I'm going to get back into that now, and because I've been so lax, I'm going to extend the create along. So we're going to be doing this up until Gwen turns 1, which is going to be July 2nd, 2020. And every 2 months, I'm going to be pulling for a prize. I'm actually going to be pulling for 3 prizes. I'm going to start with my next episode is going to be my first pull, and that will be for September. And then I'll do it every 2 months after that, all the way up until we're done. So there will be 8 sets. No, that's not right. There will be 4, 6. There will be whatever. I'll pull every 2 months until we're done. And every time I'm going to pull 1 prize from the finished object thread on Ravelry, which is in the Ravelry group, and 1 prize from the chatter thread on Ravelry, which is in the Ravelry group, and then 1 prize from the hashtag on Instagram, which is the Tiny Makes Cal. And what I'll do is every 2 months I'll set up 4 prize packages, and when you win, you'll contact me. You'll let me know your order of preference for those packages. There are 3 packages going out, so you will never get your last choice, because even if your first 2 choices were taken, you'll get your 3rd. So the first person to contact me gets their first choice, second person to contact me gets their first or second if that's taken, etc. Yeah, so that's how I'm going to do that. However, this next pull, the one that I'm doing next episode, which should be in a week, couple weeks probably, I'm only going to pull for 2 prizes because nobody has posted on the hashtag except me. So, I'm going to pull 1 from the Ravelry finished objects thread and 1 from the chatter thread. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot else to say about that except get your knits in, and I can't wait to see you chatting about it on Instagram and in the chatter threads and the finished object threads. Oh, and if I happen to pull a post that I made, then I will skip that one and go to another one. The hashtag on Instagram is tinymakescal. I think I mentioned that already, C-A-L. And yeah, so get started on that. I'm going to go pass her off to my partner, and then I'm going to show you what the prize packages are for this next pull. So the 3 prize packages that are going out this time, each one is going to have a main item, and I'm just going to show you guys the main items, and then I'll be throwing in lots of other goodies with each one of them. So the first main item is going to be some Debbie Bliss BFL DK yarn in this yellow mustardy colorway. I have 5 skeins of this that I will be sending out. I actually have like 5.5 skeins because I got it on a D-stash, but 5 skeins of this that I will be sending out. So that's one of them, along with some goodies. The second prize is these 2 balls of Patton's Croix socks. They're 4-ply sock yarn in this like blue and gray colorway. I have 2 of that. Main thing with more goodies. And the third one is going to be the same last one every time that I do this. And that is a mini set. I'm going to make a mini set out of some scraps that I have. And part of that is because the deal with the Tiny Makes Cal is that it's easy to use scraps for tiny makes, right? Because they're tiny. So, yeah. And if you want the mini set, you can let me know what colors you prefer, and you can choose how big you want the minis to be, whether they're like 10 grams or 20 grams or 5 grams. Obviously, basically I'll be giving you 100 grams of yarn. So if you want 5 gram minis, you'll be getting 20 of them, right? But if you want 20 gram minis, you'll be getting 5. You can say you'd prefer solid colors or speckled or variegated or stripes. I'll do what I can with what I have for stash. And the other thing is, if you would prefer to have DK weight or sport weight or worsted weight scraps. Let me know that. So if you, because for instance, one second, you might want scraps to make a gnome. Okay. So, this time around I'm going to leave it really open. Let me know what kinds of scraps you want. And what I would also like you to let me know is if that works. So if you're like, yeah, I don't really know, it's hard to think of what kind of scraps, and you would prefer that I came up with a scrap set and put that one up for each month set, let me know. If that is the case, if you guys say just come up with a scrap set and put it up, then what I will do is I will make one before next episode when I pull the winners. So the winners for this month will know. But yeah, so those are going to be the three main parts of the prize. And you'll get plenty of other little goodies that go with it. That is all for the cattle section. Moving on. So let's talk about my crafting plans for the rest of the year. Quick life update. In December, we are going to be moving across the country. I'm really excited. We're going to be moving back to nearish to where I grew up, and we're going to be very near to my partner's family, and yeah, I'm really excited. We've always said we're going to move back. I do have really mixed feelings about it because I've made a community out here in California, but this has always been our plan, and there's a lot of really good things that are going to be coming because we move back. So we're going to be moving to Massachusetts, somewhere in the Boston area. But that's also around the same time as Christmas. And I made a list of all of the crafting projects that I either had to finish before we moved or had to finish before Christmas. Most of them are things I have to finish before Christmas. Some of them are things I have to finish before we move. For instance, my spinning project on my spinning wheel, because the spinning wheel is not mine and I have to give it back to somebody before we move. So one of the things that I discovered is that I need to finish 4 quilts for Christmas. Because I'm crazy, don't ask about the details. And each quilt has like 3 steps in the process. It has making the quilt top, doing the quilting, and then binding it and adding the label. And like weaving in the quilting ends and stuff. Depending on the quilt, it depends on the pattern, how much time each step makes. So, for instance, one of the quilts I've been working on that you'll see later on is the charmed quilt. And that one, making the quilt top was really time and labor intensive. But doing the quilting itself is going to be pretty easy. Or pretty short. It's not going to be easy, or it's all the same difficulty. But it's not going to take nearly as long. So, yeah. Now, binding and adding the label takes pretty much the same amount of time, no matter the quilt pattern. It takes longer if the edge is bigger, because that's how that works. So, there's 3 steps per quilt. I have 4 quilts, and I have 4 months. So I basically have to do 3 steps a month. In August, I did 1, so I'm already behind. So for September, I'm going to try and do 4 to try and catch up a little bit. I've already finished 1, because I finished 1 on September 1st. And then for my sort of knitting projects, I also have a couple non-knitting things in there, like my spinning, that I want to finish. And again, I'm trying to finish all of this by the end of November so that when I inevitably don't, I still have some buffer room and I can sort of prioritize. But also because I'm going to have to be like packing up the whole house in this time. And I don't want to leave a whole bunch for December because December is going to be madness. So I'm trying to finish 4 or 5 knitting things a month. So most of my time right now has been spent on sewing. So you're going to be seeing a lot of sewing in this episode and in future episodes. But the good news about these quilt tops is that there's not a whole lot to talk about them, so it'll just be kind of like showing you an update, and I won't be talking about it as much. And it'll probably end up being about 50-50 or even more time spent on knitting and yarn stuff than on quilting and sewing. In this episode, there's definitely more time. It's about 50-50, but there's other sewing projects other than the quilts. So, yeah, those are my plans for the rest of the year in terms of my own crafting. I already mentioned to you my plans for the Creed Along. So, yeah. Alright, let's just move right into the projects. So, for my Yarny FOs, I have 5 things to talk about today, and 2 of them are just normal FOs, and 3 of them are participants in our cowl. So let's get started. My first FO is this pair of socks. And these are my D&D socks. I knit these on US 1.5, which is a 2.5 millimeter. I did the cuffs on a 2.25 or a US 1. The pattern is Whiskey and Rye by Audrey Nicklin. My notes are over here, sorry. And I really like it. It's got these like, let me shift it, slip stitch almost pattern up the front. I modified the heel flap to continue the slip stitch pattern, which you can kind of see there. I did not write up what I did for the heel flap, but basically I just did a normal heel flap, but instead of slipping the stitches that, you know, every other stitch like you would in a normal reinforced heel flap, I just slipped these ones and continued the pattern in them, and then after that last one came in, I started slipping those on the edge to make up for it. Just like a normal heel flap on the edge there. Yeah, so I'm pretty happy with these. I did the Invisible Italian Tubular cast on. I cast on the small size. I don't remember how many stitches it was. It was probably 64, maybe 60 though. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with these. I have been working on these for, gosh, about a year at this point. And I was only allowing myself to work on them when I was playing D&D. So, the yarn is Escabuts by Earl Grey Fiber Company. It's on the Darjeeling base. It's her old Darjeeling base though, and it was a special colorway. It's not normally sold. But yeah, I'm super happy with these. So that is the first one. The second finished object I have, I'm also super happy with, and this is it. It's kind of stiff from the blocking, but this is my Namu, I don't know how to say it, I'm sorry, cowl, which in Korean means tree. And this is by Knit Boop. This is a test knit, and it's the small size of the cowl, and I love it. This was such a fun cable pattern to make. It's so cool just to sort of see how she did those cables. I really, really enjoyed it. It's a cowbell. She has a big size and a small size. This was a test knit, like I said. The pattern comes out on September 9th, I believe. It might be the 7th, but I'm pretty sure it's the 9th. So you can find her on Instagram as KnitBoop, and it's also on Ravelry. But I love it. I really love this. This is going to be so cozy in the winter. The yarn that I used is Nerd String Worsted. That's KNERD, Nerd String Worsted, and it's in the Better Than Blue Jeans colorway. And it really has trouble coming through on the camera. It's kind of getting blown out, especially against my. That's closer to real life. It's a really cool color. It's this like marl. It literally looks like blue jeans. It's really cool. Maybe it's hard to get. I haven't been able to get a good picture of it either, so unfortunately I can't really do that, but it's really pretty, I promise. So it's my second finished object. Oops. All right. So now for all of my remaining finished objects, these are all things that qualify for our Tiny Makes Cal. So first off is definitely not tiny, but here it is. This is my furless blanket. Now as you can see, oh, that's pretty much the color. That's spot on. Oh my god, I love this blanket. So as you can see, this is not a blanket. So the pattern I used was the Whirling Wildflowers blanket pattern by 10 Hours or Less, and it's like tuck stitch or brioche. And the yarn I used was Knit Picks Dapple. But the problem is that Knit Picks Dapple is single ply. And what you're supposed to do to make a circle blanket is when you're done, seam up the edge. And I tried seaming it several times, and every single time it just broke. Like, everything broke. So, then I tried seaming it with different yarn, and it stuck out like a sore thumb. So what I decided is that this is just gonna be a cape. So yeah, this is for my daughter. I started making this last year when I got pregnant the first time, and then I sort of set it on hold for a while after my miscarriage, but I'm really happy with it. It's super cozy and warm, and it's brioche, like I said, so it's like floofy. But yeah, it looks really cool, and I actually really like the way it came out as a cape. So when you last saw it, you can see where that marker is. Yeah. When you last saw it, I had finished 5 of the points, and I had 7 to go. I think there's 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. Also, 5 plus 7 is not 13. It's 12. There are 12. But yeah, I'm super happy with this. Obviously, it's really warm here because it's summertime and I haven't used it yet, and my daughter is definitely not old enough for a cape. But when she is, this will be hers. Yeah, I really enjoy it. All right. Oh, and I used US 11s, which are an 8mm needle on that one. I'm gonna fix the camera, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have 2 more yarn finished objects. They both qualify for the create along. Yeah, this one is a hat. It's a baby hat that I made. I used the From Where You Were Plucked pattern, which is by Corey Willard. It's free on Ravelry. And this marker here is where I was last time. And so last time I talked to you, I had mentioned that I had this rainbow spiral coming up, and that was totally an accident. I thought it was going to speckle. But then as I started, I switched to bigger needles and the stitch gauge changed and it made this like swoosh, and I thought maybe it would just go up the side. My original plan is that this yarn was going to speckle because that's what it came out like when I made a baby sweater out of it. This is just scraps, kind of more like that on the top. And so there's this white color work in the From Where You Were Plucked pattern that I was planning to do inside of the rainbow speckles, but then when the rainbow started doing this, I was like, nope, not going to do the color work, just going to let it happen. So I got this really cool rainbow effect, rainbow spiral effect, and then at the top, when I started doing the shaping, crown shaping, I got that swoosh again. And then just kind of plain spiderweb looking, and it's got this adorable little knot on the top of it. Yeah, so I'm really happy with this. I cast on like 28 stitches more for this hat than the pattern called for, because the pattern is for a newborn hat, but I wanted it to be more like a 6-month size so that it would fit her during the winter. And so I cast on more, and then I made it slightly taller before I started the crown decreases, and then I went to do the crown decreases, and it has you do like knit a certain amount and then decrease. And I did that, and I got all around, and I was like, wait, I cast on more stitches. This doesn't work out that way. So I had to go back, and I did the math on the crown decreases, which was not hard. It was just like divide it in 4. Yeah, so I decreased the same amount for this little knot, but yeah, I really like this. I think this is going to look adorable on her this winter. So yeah. I used a US 1.5, which is a 2.5 for the ribbing, and I used a US 2, which is a 2.75 for the body of the hat. And I am super happy with it. So that's that. Then my last finished object is also something that is for the cow. Tiny makes cow, and that is my Gramps cardigan. So I made the smallest size possible in the Gramps cardigan, and that's by Kate Oates, Oates. It's paid for pattern, so I don't want to give too much away, but I love the cabling detail. It's really beautiful, and it has this sort of shawl collar effect. Now, there were a couple things that were tricky. So first of all, the button band is like too small and it keeps pulling up on it. Now this is a baby sweater. It's not going to fit her for very long, so I'm not going to fuss with it, but you can see that it's too small. And that's partially because my gauge I didn't get gauge. But then the pattern had you cast on a certain number for the button band, and there's a lot of shaping in the button band, and I could not figure out how to do it with a different number. So I just followed what was there, but it was too few stitches for me. Now that I'm thinking about it, I probably could have checked the stitch count on the next size up, but I didn't think about it. But the shaping for the button band was easy to follow. What was not clear was where to put the buttons. So as you can see, the button band gets wider, and I wasn't sure if I should keep the buttons equidistant from the edge of the button band, or like the inside edge or the outside edge. So these three are equidistant from the inside edge over here. And then this one I made slightly farther, but I think I might have to rip them out and move this one and that one farther, closer to the outside edge, because when I button it, what happens is it basically makes this tiny, tiny hole at the top that there's no way, I mean, my kid's got a small head, but it's basically gonna like, I mean, she doesn't have a small head, she's a large head for a baby, but it's still a baby, and it's basically gonna like choke her neck, and it's not gonna turn into a shawl collar, like it's that small. So I don't know, especially because the buttonhole is at this edge. I think I probably should have just stuck with the outside edge, but we'll see. This isn't going to fit her for a while. It's a 6-month size, so it's her second finished Christmas gift. The first was the hat. And I might change it, but I got these 4 buttons. I posted on Instagram and people voted for these 4. And these 4 are buttons that I inherited from my husband's grandmother when she passed away. I got like all of her sewing supplies. It was pretty awesome. I mean, it wasn't awesome that she passed away, but it was a huge influx of stuff. So I've been using a lot of that for a long time, and it's nice to sort of remember her. But yeah, so this has this cool cable design on the sleeves as well, and on the front of the sweater. It does not have directions for how to decrease in the cables when you get up here, so I kind of had to make that up on my own. And I wish it had had directions, and I understand why it didn't, because who knows where in the cable pattern you're going to be when you get here. But it would have been nice if the pattern had maybe said, you know, stop at this line or this line, and then this is how you decrease if you're here, and this is how you decrease if you're here, but it didn't. I just had to kind of ad-lib it. And since the cables are such a huge part of it, it kind of took the most trial and error. When you saw this last, I was about here. I had knit up to the sleeves. I think I was working on one of the sleeves, but I'm not sure about that. But I was basically at the underarm where I joined the sleeves in. Yeah, it's knit bottom up. Yeah, it's cute. The yarn is Magpie Fibers Swanky DK in the London Rain colorway, and I used US 6 and US 7 needles, which is a 4 and a 4.5 millimeter. So there we go. So those are my yarny finished objects. Alright, so here are my yarny works in progress. You can see I've got all my project bags lined up over here. First up, because it doesn't have a bag, are my baby washcloths. So I'm crocheting these. I am using a 5mm hook. They kind of live in this yarn bowl, which is from Laurel. I got it at Black Squirrel, Berkeley. But I'm using the Linen Stitch Dishcloth by Deirdre Uys, Dedryuys is the last name. Yeah. Yeah, so these are the 3 that you've already seen. And the yarn that I'm using is Birdie's Knit 100% cotton gradient sets. So this one is on a bed of roses. So I've got these 3 done that you've already seen. And then I've done 5 more because the gradient sets come with 5. So if you kind of put them in order a little bit, you get this. There's a baby crying in the background. Don't worry, my husband's home. He's taking care of it. There you go. So these 8. Yeah, they're super soft and colorful, and I'm really happy with them. All the ends are woven in on these 8. On Ravelry, I think that's listed as its own project, but I'm kind of considering them all to be one project, because the other one is this blue set that I'm working on. And that one, I think the colorway is Ibiza. I don't have it pulled up. But it's got these golden yellows into like a tealy green, and then some blues. And then there's 2 left. There's this one that I'm working on, and then there's one more after that. So yeah, I have the ends woven in on about half of these, so I need to weave in the ends on the rest of them. But yeah, I just need to finish 2 more and weave in the ends, and then I'll be done with these. They're so soft. I absolutely am in love with them. Yeah, I only have good things to say about these. I highly recommend the yarn too. It's luxurious to work with, and it's cotton. Like, oh, it's so good. So good. Anyway, yeah. Those washcloths are the only work in progress I have that qualifies for our Tiny Makes Cal. But I have a bunch of other works in progress. Okay, quick change up of everything. Had to go feed the baby. Now I'm back. So, first work in progress is living in this beautiful deer bag from Knitting Nelly. And that is my, oops. So the first work in progress is living in this beautiful deer bag from Knitting Nelly. It's like quilted. It's very cool. And that is my Follow Your Dreams fingerless mitts. So here they are. So these are going to be for my husband for Christmas. He loves neon colors, and I've made him a lot of neon colored socks. So I figured I would use some scraps. Now the funny thing about this is that I'm actually mostly not using scraps. So this yellow and this green are not scraps because I bought them to make him more neon colored socks, but I haven't made them yet. The blue is sort of scraps because I have started that pair of socks, but I haven't finished it. The purple is scraps from socks I made my brother. And the orange is scraps from his first pair of socks. So I'm working the color work portion of these on US 2, which is a 2.75 millimeter. Now I can't remember if I went down a needle size or not for the ribbing. And I think I did, but I started the ribbing on the regular ones, and I'm going to see if it matches up with what I did on the bottom, and if it doesn't, then I'll rip it out and go back down a needle size. But when you last saw this, I had made it to about here, and I had done the main modification that I'm making is that I'm doing a thumb gusset instead of just a waist yarn, straight thumb, no gusset. So I'm going to do a thumb gusset. And I had made it to about here, and I had kept working, but then I realized that the thumb gusset was too short. So I had mentioned that I was going to rip back, and I did. I frogged back, and I made the thumb gusset a couple rows longer, and then I kept going, and I'm really happy with that. I ended up stopping the thumb gusset just before I started the yellow color work, so I didn't have to wrap any yellow through there. Last time I had stopped it just after the green, but this time I kept it going through this black border in between. This is a free pattern on Ravelry, by the way. And it's by, I have no idea how to pronounce this, V-I-N-E with a reverse cap, N-E with an accent aigu, and then Sestry, S-E-S-T-R-Y. But it's wonderful. Yeah. So I'm pretty happy with these, how they're coming out. Hopefully they will be done for Christmas. That was all I have to say about that. Alright, so next up is living in this little fox project bag. This is one of my original project bags that I got. I can't remember who it's by, but I am working on my Christmas mittens. Now, returning viewers, you'll know that I'm making a set of mittens for the 12 days of Christmas, so this is for day 4. It has 4 French hens. It has 3 so far, but it will have 4. And they're just little mittens. They're going to end up being a garland. So I'm using Knit Picks palette in the Marine Heather colorway is the blue. And then the white, I think, is Oyster. No, cream. This is cream. I'm using US 1.5, which is a 2.5 millimeter. Yeah. So last time that you saw this mitten, I was about here. So I've gotten pretty far on it. This was something that, I don't know, like I mentioned before, I'd lost my knitting mojo, and yeah, so this was something that I was running out the door, and I knew I was going to be going to a knitting store, and I wanted to have some knitting to work on, but I didn't really have any projects in mind, so I literally just grabbed the bag. You probably won't see this again for a while, because I have, sorry, I'm trying to fix my gauge. I have a lot of stuff that I have to get done before Christmas, so yeah, you probably won't see this for a while, but the pattern is by Kathy Lewinsky, and yeah. Alright, so next up, this is living in my Earl Grey Fiber Company bag with the cork bottom, which I really love. This hat is the Golden Autumn hat. That is by Lucy Sweetland. And I'm knitting this for 2 things. One, I am knitting it for the BIPOC knit along, or Black and Indigenous and People of Color knit along that's happening on Instagram. And I'm also knitting it, and that knit along, by the way, is you use a pattern that is by a BIPOC designer, or you use, I think you can use yarn too, but I'm not sure. But it's this really pretty hat. And the other thing I'm doing it for is I'm making a shop sample for the Black Squirrel. So this is the hat. It's really pretty. And it has this really beautiful folded brim. And what I am making the hat out of is going to be this, which is Cedar House Yarns Irish Yearling DK in the Wine Sap colorway, which I love. But the brim, I'm trying not to give too much away about the pattern. It's a folded brim. I don't think that's giving too much away. And so it uses a lot more yardage than most DK weight hats because it's a double brim. And so I wanted to be able to make the hat just out of that yarn. I didn't want to have to buy 2 balls. So I'm doing an experiment, which is where the inside of the brim I'm doing in a scrap DK weight yarn. Something else. So this is the yarn that I used in my Gramp sweater. And this is Magpie Fibers Swanky DK in their London Rain colorway, and it's just some scraps that I had. And I think, if I played my cards right, I think I'm going to be able to get the whole hat out of just 1 ball of DK weight yarn, which will be excellent. Yeah, so I'm really enjoying that. Right now it's just stockinette, so I'm sort of doing it whenever I'm on the phone or hanging out with friends or something like that. But soon it'll get into the actual pattern of the hat, and I'm really excited for that because it's beautiful. Two more. So this next one is living in this project bag. This is my Time for Tea project bag. I can't remember who made this, but I love it. Oh, here we go. Front range bags. I love it. It's got outside pockets, and then it has inside pockets, and it's got yarn guides. It's awesome. Okay, I don't think you've seen this one before, but I'm casting on Anthe. This is Anthe by Hilary Smith Callis or Caius, I'm not sure. And it's this cute short sleeve top with like a tie in the front. And I am using Earl Grey Fiber Company Darjeeling Sock in her Copper Pot colorway. So here it is. I got a little bit of pooling right there, but I love it. Oh, it's so cute. So this is obviously hand-dyed yarn. I am alternating skeins. I have 3 skeins of it, so we'll see. I am knitting it on 3mm needles. I'm knitting on 3mm needles. And it's basically stockinette in the round for most of it. And so what I do is whenever I go to a game convention, I bring this with me and I just knit and knit and knit and knit and knit. So I'm not sure if you have seen this before. I have worked on it at 3, maybe just 2 game conventions, but I think 3 game conventions now. ThunderCon, definitely, which was in February. KublaiCon, which was in May. And I think I might have worked on it at Big Bad Con last October. Big Bad Con is my favorite one. Yes, I'm that person. I have a favorite knitting con. I mean, game con. So, yeah, I'm super happy with this. Super excited for when it's going to come out. But again, it's one of those ones that I sort of work on long term. So, who knows when you'll see it again. This bag, by the way, has all my con pins on it. For obvious reasons. Alright, and the last thing that I have to show you is my scrap blanket, which is really massive at this point. Okay, so since you've seen this last, I have added the following squares. So I had made this triangle and that triangle, and then I was sort of working up from the middle. And I have finally made it so that I am even with the edge of that triangle. So I made this one. This was from an Opal Mini. This one was also from an Opal Mini. This one, which is from a swap. This one, also from a swap. This one, which I think was just a scrap of mine. And I'm almost done with this one. I'm going to count this one as done that you've seen already when I show this to you next time. And this is Miss Bab's Yummy 2-ply from my grandmother's sweater in the colorwork section. So, yeah, there it is. You are not going to see this again for a long time because it is hot. And I live in California. No. So I don't know. I might finish this square. But that's it. Yeah, so I'm really enjoying how far this is getting. Once I finish, so I've already cast on like the black for this sort of whole row across. So once I finish that, I will be even with the 2 points. So I can do one more row across, and then I'll have to add the other side, and then it's just going to be so unwieldy. It doesn't matter. I'll work on it anyway. But yeah, that is my scrap blanket pattern, the stained glass scrap blanket. It's on Ravelry. It's free. Yeah. All right, that is all of my yarny works in progress. All right, so non-yarn related crafts. First up is my cross stitch. So I'm working on my spring sampler. There you go. The pattern is by Teresa Wensler. Last time you saw this, I had just done these cross stitches, these green cross stitches on either side of the 4 borders. So I've obviously done a lot of work since then. This I actually worked on in like March. I didn't have any knitting mojo, but I had a lot of cross stitching mojo for whatever reason. So I finished all of these eyelets and flowers, made all of these. I did the eggs, spring title, all these eyelets and these eyelets. And then these 4 are going to be little flower scenes. And so this one's going to be a bird on a flower. And then I have to sign and date it and add all the beads. So it's still quite a while out from being done, but I just wanted to show it to you. Long-term viewers will remember that I have already made summer, fall, and winter. So my original plan had been to do all 4 of them in 1 year. Do them like every season. That didn't happen. So then I was like, well, I'll do 1 every year. So I got 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017. And then that one was supposed to be done in 2018. That obviously did not happen. So then I was like, well, I'll just skip a year and it'll be done in 2019. And that's not going to happen either. So I'll just finish it when I finish it. I'm not heartbroken about it. I worked on other cross stitches in the meantime, and it'll look a little funny when I frame them all and it says, 2015, 16, 17, 2020. But it is what it is. Yeah. All right, so next up for non-yarn crafts, I have some sewing. So first of all, last time that I talked to you, I mentioned that I was going to be making flannel cloth wipes. So I've done that. I do not have all of them here because I have a child now and they are in use. They're in the wipe warmer. But I wanted to go ahead and show them to you. So I mentioned that I had made myself some flannel pajamas with this Ladybug flannel. And I was going to use all my leftovers to make some wipes. So here's one of them. I made them 8 inches by 8 inches and I just serged the edges. It's really simple. I learned how to use a serger. I have access to a serger because there's one at the Black Squirrel and I have a membership there. I don't own a serger. So I learned how to use a serger and I serged some wipes. So here's the ladybugs. I think they're cute. And I made about 15 of these. Then I was like, you know what? I made those pajama pants for myself out of this flannel. They don't fit me. I made them a long time ago. And I messed up several times, so I had to like seam more flannel together to make it into a pant leg shape. And I didn't do any of the finishing right, so it's all those seams were like the back of the pants I had seamed. So I made like pant leg and then like more to fill out basically the crotch and butt area. And this seam where I seamed them together was coming apart and it was just not working. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to cannibalize those pants. So I seam ripped the pants and then I used that flannel to make a bunch more ladybug wipes. The reason I'm showing these to you separately, I made about 15 of these as well, is because you can tell these were from the unused flannel. This is from the flannel that I put through the wash a million times and wore as pants for 3 years. So it's still perfectly usable. It is less soft and less vibrant. But that's it. It's still perfectly usable. So that was about 30 wipes together. And then I made some out of my hedgehog fabric that I showed you guys last time. For whatever reason, I really messed up on these, and they are all 8 inches by 7 inches. No idea why, but clearly at some point I did something wrong. And it's kind of annoying because the rest of my webs are all 8 inches by 8 inches. But it is what it is. So I got 20 of these cute little hedgehogs. Yeah. And when I went up the first time to use a serger, I had just taken my I had finished all the Ladybug ones from the new Ladybugs. I hadn't cannibalized the pants yet. And I had the other flannel with me, but I'd have to iron it and start cutting it. And I had to leave in like 40 minutes. And it was like, well, what am I going to do? Like iron it and then cut it and then have to iron it again when I get back. So I just took my Ladybug scraps, and I had a whole bunch more flannel left that wasn't big enough to make an 8x8 square. And I made a bunch of these. So I made about 10 of these, and I'm going to use these for makeup removing. Not that I wear makeup very much anymore, but I don't know. That's a different conversation. But I have them to use them. And then I ordered some laminated cotton from fabric.com, and I ordered 2 types. I ordered some with ladybugs on it and some with lemons on it. So this is what the lemon fabric looks like. This is what the ladybug fabric looks like. And I like ladybugs, obviously. I mean, I'm literally the Ladybug Laboratory. So I ordered this mid-May-ish, just before I recorded my last episode. And it came in the mail, and what I had ordered them for was these Cool Wipes containers. I'll show you in a minute. But at the end of May, I went to a game convention with a couple of my friends. We're all sharing a hotel room, and food is expensive there. So we brought, like, basically stuff to make PB&Js. And so in order to take those PB&Js with us places, we didn't want to use Ziploc bags. So what I did is I found this tutorial on Pinterest for making these, like, sandwich wraps out of the fabric. So I made 3 from the lemon. No, I made 2 from the lemon and 3 from the ladybug. I made them in 2 different sizes. You can see that the lemon one is bigger. It's about 2 inches bigger in each direction. They're both squares. And the way that it works is you just build your sandwich in the middle, and then you fold up, and then fold down, and there's Velcro there. And you fold up, fold across, and there's Velcro. And I mean, obviously it doesn't look like there's a sandwich in there, because there's not a sandwich in there. But I made 5 of them, and there were 4 of us. And so I gave 1 to each of the other people. And then my partner and I, he was also there. We kept 3 of them, the remaining 3. So yeah, we've used them since. I'm pretty happy with them. They're really nice. You can just like throw them in the washing machine. So yeah. They were super, super simple to make. I will try and link the tutorial if I remember how to do it. Or where I got it from, or remember to link it. There we go. But yeah, I'm super happy with them. So then I mentioned that I also found this tutorial on Pinterest that I had mentioned last episode for these wipes containers. So I made 4 of them. So I made 2 Ladybugs wipes containers. Obviously this one has wipes in it, this one does not. And 2 lemons. And these, they are called Bee Bundles. I got them on Amazon. And they are like things to open wipes containers. So it came in a set of 4 with 2 blue and 2 red, and it was like perfect because I had the lemons and the ladybugs. And they're really cool. They just, I don't know, they've got like a plate under here, and then they snap into each other, so it snaps around the hole. So you just cut a hole in the fabric and then put this in. So I made these 4. They were also super simple and super rewarding. It's like, this is a really cool thing that I made, and it only took me like a couple hours. So yeah, I put zippers on. Now, the zippers are not waterproof. The fabric is laminated cotton, so it's not 100% waterproof, but it's pretty close. But the zippers are not, and the openings are not, which is unfortunate, but it works out fine. So when I go places, I fold up a whole bunch of my cloth wipes and put them in here. This can fit 20 to 25 wipes. I don't usually put that many in there because I'm not gone for that long, I'll put like 10. I never use more than 10 wipes, but it's really easy to do this, and I fold them so that the next one pops out. Oh! So yeah, I have this like wipe solution, and I'll fill one of these up, and then I'll just pour the solution in there, and it basically just soaks into the flannel. I'll leave it in the sink while it's soaking, just in case it comes out the zipper or out of the lid. But yeah, mostly I'm just gonna shove this back in the top. Yeah, so I'm really happy with these. They were a lot of fun to make. They've been super effective and a lot of fun to use. And they're just cute. They're ladybugs. So yeah, this one was the first one that I made. And the tutorial that I found was A, in French, and B, had different units and called for a different one of these, which they don't have in the US. And so it was kind of my trial and error one. And then I wrote down, okay, what's an easier way to do this? And I turned this into inches, I think, to make it sort of line up with my zipper measurements and my measurement for this. And so this one's a little bit wonky, but the others are all pretty good. I learned a lot from the first one. Yeah, I'm really, really happy with those. All right, I have 3 sewing projects left, and I sat down. Well, I've mentioned that I sat down and came up with all the projects that I had to figure out for the rest of the year. It's not good. So I'm really, really working on finishing these quilts, and these are quilts that I've been working on to get done. I don't know if I'm going to get them done, but I'm really going to try. And because of that, I haven't been knitting as much, even though my crafting mojo is way back. So first of all, this one is my CC quilt. And I haven't finished the quilt. I finished the quilt top, right? So I still have to actually quilt it and bind it. Yeah, so I've been working on this literally for 3 years. I'm not going to unfold the whole thing and show it to you, but it looks kind of like that. I don't know, I'm glad to have it done. I'm honestly not super thrilled with it. The pattern, the colors that were in the original pattern, I don't know, it just looks a lot better than this. And I picked this set of fabric because the colors were requested by the recipient, but I don't think it really works for this pattern, which is unfortunate. I thought it would. I thought, like, I didn't, like, intentionally be like, oh, I'm going to pick a pattern that those colors don't work for. I thought it would work, but it just doesn't. But, I mean, it's fine. It's still pretty cute. It's not the end of the world. This is going to be obnoxious to quilt, though, because with quilting, the longer and straighter the line you can go, the better. And I do stitch in the ditch quilting, so I have to, like, go around all of these. And I can do this, but then it's like I come back here and I get stuck there. I know. I will figure it out. I'll plot out a quilting map on it. But and the other thing is another quilt top. So this is my charmed quilt top. Not sure who this is going to go to yet. I might have to redo some of this black borders at the edge because it's not 100% even, but I'm pretty sure it's fine. But I'm super happy with this one. I'm so in love with this quilt. So the original pattern for this one did not call for a jelly roll, and I used a jelly roll. And then I had to completely change the border. So what I ended up doing is, in the original pattern, it had like even smaller full pinwheels. But I A, didn't have enough fabric for that, and B, the fabric was already cut in a way that that wouldn't work. And so I could make all these same size triangles, and I was like, well, I'm just going to do random, but then I didn't like random. So then I thought about doing fake pinwheels and just using random ones here, but that was really distracting. So I just went to the store, I got a 1/4 yard of this gray fabric, and I put that in there to make all these pinwheels, and I am so happy with how it turned out. I am in love with this quilt. This is probably my favorite quilt that I've made to date. Obviously, again, it's not done, it's just the quilt top. But I really, really love this quilt top. The folding's all coming undone. Okay, I'll have to refold it in a minute. I really love it. All right. And then I have another quilt top that I started working on. So this is my Hidden Wells quilt. And I start with 8 sets of this. So I made all 8 of them. And this fabric, this red one, and this purple one, I bought separately. And then the others came in a jelly roll. And originally the jelly roll had this like hot pink fabric that I was going to use here, but I just really don't like hot pink. I just really don't. And I thought it just kind of ruined the effect of the whole thing, so I replaced it. But yeah, so there's 8 of these, and it's roughly this thing, and then a blue, a gray, a blue, same blue, the purple, and then this is like a cream or like an orange, yellow, brown, and then this is like green in all 8 of them. So I made all 8 of those. I won't show all 8 of them to you. And then you do some magic with some scissors and some sewing, and you turn one of those strips into this. What? This is so cool. So I did this once. So I've made all 8 of the long strips, and then one of them I turned to this, so I have 7 left. So you can see this is that like red fabric, and then this is like the blue, cream, blue, blue, cream, blue, and then there's that purple, and then the orange and the green. Yeah, scissors and sewing made this magical thing. So, the quilt is made of 8 of these with a border around the edge. This quilt top is going much faster than the charmed quilt. The charmed one is probably the most complicated quilt I have to finish this year. Partially because I basically made the pattern up myself. Like, I got it from a pattern book, but I looked at the picture, I changed the size, I changed the schematics, I changed the amount of fabric I was using, I changed the type of fabric I was using, I did a whole bunch of math to make it work out for myself, and then I changed the border. So, yeah. But also because triangles are more complicated and take more time, and that was basically all triangles. This one is one that kind of looks like triangles, but really it's more just like rectangles that are on edge. So in places like this, where there's like a corner there, it functions like a triangle when I'm sewing it, but for most of it, it won't be as complicated. So yeah, it took me about an hour and a half to go from strip to this. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to finish up that quilt top relatively quickly and get sort of back on track with my quilting. Okay, so those are all of my projects. We're gonna move on to the topic. So today's topic is breaking taboos. I have a lot to say about this. My life has changed a lot recently, and several things in my life have to do with things that you don't talk about in civilized society. Pregnancy and birth, those are both messy things and a little bit taboo to talk about, especially birth, in any way that's not like, oh, I'm glowing and I'm so happy. There's a lot of like stigma if you're not happy when you're pregnant about, shouldn't you be happy? You're pregnant, you're gonna have a kid, like, yeah. And then everything that is postpartum recovery is incredibly taboo. But I also am not a neurotypical person, and so I have mental illnesses, and that's pretty taboo, and that's also impacted by all of this hormonal stuff. And our modern capitalistic idea that your identity is your job. That's what I'm gonna talk about. So, you have been forewarned. None of these are easy topics. Let's go. I hated being pregnant. I hated every minute of it. It was a horrible, horrible experience for me. And I actually got diagnosed with something that I can never remember the name because it's like a million bajillion letters, but I'll put it down here. Which is basically where you have terrible, terrible, terrible morning sickness that's way above and beyond any other morning sickness. So my morning sickness lasted through more than half of my pregnancy instead of just the first 12 weeks or so as they expect it to. And I also wasn't just nauseous, I was actively throwing up, and I would throw up 4-ish times a day. Every day. No matter what I did. I was throwing up so much, and the only things I could reliably keep down were ginger ale, sometimes. Mostly not. Sometimes I could keep down water, sometimes I could only keep down ginger ale, sometimes I couldn't keep down any liquids. Ritz crackers and macadamia nuts. And so I was just constantly eating, like I ate like 2,000 to 3,000 calories of just macadamia nuts a day, because just eating 1 or 2 would sometimes make me feel like I wasn't going to throw up, and make me only throw up like 4 times a day instead of like 8. Like there were literally days where I threw up 6 or 7 times. It was horrible. I had anemia and I was passing out constantly. It was just a terrible, terrible thing. I hated every minute of it. And everybody talks about this like pregnant glow that you get, and I just looked ill, like constantly. And then it came to birth. I'm not going to go through all the details of birth with you because you don't need that. But I don't know, everybody's like, the miracle of life, it's such a wonderful experience. And on the one hand it is, but on the other hand it's also like, can we talk about the wonderful things about modern medicine, please? Because I would have died. I literally started hemorrhaging. I would have died in childbirth if it weren't for modern medicine. And I'm so sick of everybody being like, oh, natural is better. And hello? Like, yeah. Anyway. The other thing is, I am not a neurotypical person. I have depression, I have anxiety, and I have bipolar disorder. And throughout my life, I have gone through many different methods of trying to manage the symptoms of those illnesses. But something I realized when I was pregnant is that I will always have those illnesses. And to a certain extent, I had kind of thought, well, maybe they went away with time, right? But they didn't. They were still there. And I won't get into my whole backstory here, but I was on a lot of medication when I was in high school. It was bad for me. I stopped that medication. And I wasn't on medication for 3 or 4 years. No, more than that. Maybe like 5 or 6. And then I started giving medicine another try. And I found this wonderful cocktail of low doses of 2 different meds that I use. And it makes me feel like the person I've always wanted to be. Like I can function, right? Like it's like I don't have this block in my mind anymore from all of these other things happening. And the problem was that I couldn't be on either of those when I was pregnant. And it was rough. It was really rough. And everybody talks about like postpartum depression. But I didn't have that. I felt so much better afterward because I'm not on both of them, but I'm back on one of them, and it's like I can enjoy life again. And the whole experience of being pregnant was like a reminder that no, you haven't just grown past this. You aren't just like magically not ill anymore. You still have a mental illness. You will always have a mental illness. It's not something that's just gonna like magically disappear. You're able to manage it with a lot of coping strategies, and definitely with the aid of medication to give you that boost so that the coping strategies work, but you're still gonna have bipolar disorder and depression and anxiety for the rest of your life. And I think what really hit me so hard about it was that I had all these coping mechanisms that I thought I had gotten to the point where I could function and I didn't need to worry about it anymore. And then when I got pregnant, I realized that these coping mechanisms that I have are really awesome and really important, but they don't work when I'm not on my meds. They only get me so far. And if I have the meds as a baseline, then I can get all my skills and strategies up and going. I can use those coping mechanisms, and I can function like a normal adult. And I like my life again. Like, I really cannot overstate the impact that those meds have on me. I will never, ever, ever be someone that says medication is bad, unilaterally. Like I said, when I was in high school, I was definitely on the wrong meds. They did not work for me. There's a lot of stuff that went on with that situation, but sometimes meds are not the answer. Those meds were definitely not the answer for me. But sometimes they are, and sometimes they can be that tool that you need to just get through your day. And everybody's asking me, like, how are you doing? You know, new baby, everything's stressful, right? And honestly, I feel so much better than I did all of last year. And I don't know how to say that without just sort of bearing my soul to people, but I think it's an important thing to talk about because yes, babies are stressful, don't get me wrong, like, but we as human beings are more than a single experience that defines us, and assuming because I have this stressful event in my life that this is the most stressful period of my life assumes a lot about the rest of me as a human being. And I get it. I'm not upset when people are like, oh, you must be so stressed out. Like, that's a very kind, natural thing to say. Do not get me wrong. I am not judging those people or mad at those people or in any way. But it just made me start thinking about this assumption that I've made toward other people, that we as society make, that when you have this stressful event in your life, like a baby, that your whole life is consumed by that and that it's not put in perspective. And putting in perspective, having a kid is nothing to me. And this sort of leads right into my next topic, I came to the realization that I am significantly less stressed with a newborn in my house than I ever was at my job. And for years of my life, I have defined myself. I'm a teacher. I teach 8th grade. I love 13-year-olds. I love those kids. I love my job. I invest my heart and my soul into it. I end up being a counselor and a teacher and a mom and the one who gives food to my kids sometimes. I work in a very underprivileged school, and those kids need a lot. And I always stepped up to the plate and gave it to them. And I've defined myself as being a teacher and realizing that, number one, over the past year, my marriage almost fell apart because of how much I was putting into my job and how there wasn't anything left for my family when I got home. And how my partner always had to make up for me. He did everything so that I could maintain my 60 to 80 hour a week work week. And that's not healthy. That's not feasible long term. And so I'm sitting here. I'm obviously not working this school year because I have a baby. Number one, I would have to take maternity leave at the beginning of the year anyway, but also because we're moving in December, and that's school years work that way. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move across the country. And then what? Because in this world, we define ourselves based on our occupation. And I don't want to not have that. And I don't want to define myself by my motherhood, because that's only part of who I am. And I want there to be more in my life than just that. And that feels like something I can't say, because it comes across as me either judging people that enjoy being a stay-at-home mom, or implying that my kid isn't good enough for me, neither of which are things that I'm doing. But I also can't go back to working like that. Especially now that I have my own kid. I need to have energy when I come home to give to her, and not just give it to my 150 students every day. And I'm not really capable of doing anything halfway. I'm not really capable of saying no when kids need me. I'm not really capable of saying no when my coworkers need me. And I don't know where that leaves me for the rest of my life. And so I'm in this limbo right now, and everybody's asking, oh, when are you going back to work? Or are you staying home? And I don't think I really can say I'm doing either of those things. So, yeah, I don't know what's gonna come of my life. And that's a really weird place to be in this weird limbo where I don't know what's coming next. I've always been someone who plans really far ahead, and I don't know if it's a coping mechanism for my anxiety or what it is, but I am a planner. I plan months, if not years in advance, down to the point where, like, when we got married and we had about 30 people coming in for our wedding party and staying with various family and friends in the area, and then we're going to be there for a week and have, like, basically a giant long party, I sketched out a timetable of everything we were doing, who was staying in what house, who had cars, who needed to go in each car to make sure there were enough people to get people places, and who needed to pick who up when and drop who off where. And I sent the table out by mail 3 months ahead of time to everyone involved. And I don't know what the future of my life looks like. And that's an uncomfortable place to be for me. So, yeah. That's where I'm at, is this discomfort, this realization that we so often define ourselves by one thing. And I don't want to be defined by one thing, whether that's my job or my motherhood. But there's not a lot of room in the world for fighting against that. But I want to. I don't want to find myself in a place where I continue to define myself by one thing, or judge myself on how I define myself, or feel like I have to have an answer for people. And so I don't know how to change that. And that's something that I'm working on right now, is trying to change the way I define myself, be comfortable with uncertainty, and be comfortable with not saying I'm a blank. Because right now I can't say I'm a teacher, and I don't want to say I'm a mom and have that be the be-all end-all of everything I am. So I'm sure this last part is not unique to me, how we define ourselves and all of that. it's probably exacerbated by my issues, but I don't think I'm alone in it. And so what I would like to do is I would like to support each other in that. So I have a question for you. And my question is, what I want you to do is in your head answer the question, who am I? And you'll probably come up with, I'm a blank. But I want you to push beyond that. And what I want you to do is in the Ravelry thread or in the comments of this video, write down, share with us, what was your initial reaction? What are other things that you would like to define yourself by? And what can you do to work on seeing yourself and other people as multiple things? I don't have my own answers for that yet. I'm going to have to think about it. Probably in a day or two, I'll come back and put them in the YouTube comments and in the Ravelry thread. But yeah, try and come up with a bunch of different ways you define yourself and how you can work on seeing yourself as more than just those things. Make it a goal. Make it something you'd like to think about. And yeah. So, all right. I think that is all for today. I didn't get to some of the stuff I was going to talk about, so I'll talk about that next time. But that was plenty. And this is a pretty long episode, so. Okay. All right. I will see you guys later. Happy knitting, happy whatever you're doing,